They say the dead don't speak, but here in Salem, they whisper through the walls, through the trees, through the names carved in forgotten stone. Some say it's guilt, some say it's memory, but I know better now, because when I moved into that house on Gallows Hill, she started whispering to me, and she hasn't stopped since. They told me Salem was quiet, a quaint little town steeped in history, perfect for a fresh start. They didn't tell me it would breathe like something alive. The house sat on the edge of Gallows Hill, a crooked Victorian thing, red shutters, chipped paint, tall windows that watched you. I saw it online and thought, this is it. Secluded, affordable, weird enough to spark my imagination. I'm a writer. I crave weird. The moving truck left before sunset. I stood alone on the porch, key cold in my hand. The air was thick, like something had been exhaled and not yet pulled back in. I pushed open the front door. It creaked. Of course it creaked. Inside, the place smelled of old wood and faint lilac. Dust spiraled in beams of late sun. It was fully furnished, though nothing matched. The couch too modern, the dining table far too antique. A grandfather clock stood in the hallway, its pendulum motionless, though I heard ticking. The realtor had smiled too wide when I signed the lease. It has character, she'd said. Let the house show you who it is. I thought she meant charm. The first strange thing? No mirrors, not one. Even the bathroom above the sink. Just a blank wall where one should have been. Unnerving, but maybe the previous tenant had a thing about reflections. I told myself not to be superstitious. I wandered through each room, letting my fingers trail along dusty banisters. The upstairs hallway was narrow, the wallpaper peeling in strips like old skin. At the end of it, one door refused to open. It rattled, locked from the other side. No key fit. I didn't like that. I told myself I'd call the landlord tomorrow. That night, I made tea in a too-quiet kitchen and sat on the front steps, watching the sky go violet. The wind moved strangely here, not around me, but through me. I kept glancing over my shoulder. Inside, the house sighed. Floorboards whispered. I laughed at myself, said out loud, "You're being dramatic." Something upstairs responded with a dull thump. My skin tightened. I waited. Nothing followed. I locked all the doors before bed, even the internal ones. Just a habit, I told myself. New house, unfamiliar layout, just nerves. I lay awake, eyes on the ceiling, breath shallow. The house creaked again. No, not creaked. It shifted, like it was settling into me just as much as I was trying to settle into it. And just before sleep dragged me under, I could have sworn I heard it whisper, "Welcome home." I woke up in the dark, the kind of dark that feels thick, heavy, like something pressed against your skin. It wasn't the silence that got me, it was the smell. Ashes, not smoke, not burning. Ashes, cold, spent, long dead. The air had changed, the kind of scent that clings to your throat, like it remembers something your mind's not ready to face. I sat up, heart thudding louder than the quiet. The fireplace was across from the bed, sealed, unused. Still, that smell seeped from it, as if something had burned there. Not recently, but not long enough ago either. I got up. No lights. Of course, I used my phone for light and walked barefoot across the wood floor. The cold traveled up my legs like water. The smell grew stronger. I crouched near the fireplace, touched the brick. Dry, clean, but I swear it pulsed with leftover heat. I stood up fast, too fast. The phone trembled in my hand. Then I heard it, above me. 1, 2, 3 steps, deliberate, measured, right above the bedroom. I held my breath. Another step. The hallway upstairs. I was alone. I had checked every room, every lock. Another step, then silence. I didn't move, didn't even blink, just stood there, phone light shaking across the wallpaper. Minutes passed, nothing. No more steps, no creak, no sound at all. Just that smell, ashes and something else underneath. Old earth, like something buried too long. I told myself it was the house settling. That's what old houses do, right? I forced a laugh, though it didn't sound like me. Said out loud, "This is how ghost stories start." Then I added quieter, "You're fine. You're just tired." But even as I said it, my eyes drifted to the ceiling. The footsteps had been real. I felt them more than I heard them. Like the house remembered someone walking there and wanted me to remember too. I climbed back into bed but left the light on. Phone on my chest, eyes on the ceiling, no more sounds. Only the faint tick from the hallway clock, even though I never wound it, and that awful clinging smell. Like the end of a fire that had once burned something it shouldn't. I didn't sleep. Not really. I just waited for morning. And the whole time I couldn't shake the feeling. I wasn't the only one waiting. It was mid-morning when I found the basement door. I hadn't noticed it before. Maybe because it was tucked behind the pantry shelves, or maybe because the house didn't want me to see it. That sounds ridiculous, I know, but that's exactly how it felt. I was looking for the fuse box. The lights in the upstairs hallway kept flickering, and I thought maybe something had tripped. That's when I shifted the shelf, and there it was. A door, painted the same dull color as the wall, seamless, almost like it was trying to disappear. I stepped closer. It had no handle, just a rusted keyhole and something else. Nails. 4 thick nails driven deep into the frame, 2 on each side, from the inside. Who boards up a door from the inside? I pressed my ear against it. Silence. But the wood was cold. Too cold. Like touching stone in winter. I texted the landlord, told her I'd found a sealed door in the kitchen, and asked if it led to the basement. She replied within seconds. "That door's always been there. Don't worry about it." I called her. She didn't pick up. Instead, she texted again. "Seriously, don't go messing with that. There's nothing down there. Never has been." The message sat in my phone like a warning disguised as casual advice. I stared at the door. There had to be something behind it. Every house like this has a basement, and if it really had been sealed for years, why? What were they keeping out? Or in? I knocked once. The sound echoed flat, like hitting hollow stone. Not wood, not empty space. Something deeper. I walked away, slowly, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The boarded-up door. The way the landlord answered just a little too fast, like she'd been expecting the question. Later that evening, I passed the kitchen and heard a soft click. I stopped, waited. Another click, metallic, like a latch trying to release. I didn't check. I couldn't. Not yet. I just stared across the room at the pantry, heart crawling into my throat. The house was still. Too still. But behind that door, something was breathing. Not loud, not fast, just there, waiting. I turned off the kitchen light and backed out slowly, step by step. I didn't want to wake it up. Not yet. I found her on the second floor. I was cleaning, half distracted, trying to make the place feel like mine. The upstairs hallway still gave me chills. Too narrow, too quiet, but I forced myself to move through it, one door at a time. That's when I opened the linen closet and saw the painting. It was leaning against the back wall, tucked behind some moth-eaten blankets. The frame was thick, carved, the gold leaf chipped and flaking like dried skin. I pulled it out. The canvas was old, cracked, darkened by time, but the image was still clear. A girl, maybe 12, maybe 13, pale skin, dark hair pulled back tight, mouth pressed into a soft frown. Her dress was simple, gray, the kind you'd expect in a Puritan portrait, hands folded neatly in her lap. But her eyes, God, her eyes, they looked straight at me. Not through me, at me, alive, aware, like she'd been waiting for me to find her. My skin prickled. The room felt colder, even though the window was shut. No draft, no reason. I studied the bottom corner of the frame. A name scratched faintly into the wood. Mercy B. 1692. The year twisted something in my gut. Salem, 1692. The trials, the executions, the burning. I backed away, but the painting stayed with me. Her gaze followed, calm and constant. I tried to laugh it off. Said out loud, "Creepy, sure, but you're just paint and dust." But something about her face, it wasn't frightened, it wasn't sad, it was waiting. I carried the portrait downstairs, thinking maybe I'd store it in the attic. But when I passed the front parlor, I paused. The fireplace, the ashes. Without really thinking, I leaned the painting against the mantel, and the smell came back. Faint, like burned paper, like scorched cloth. I stood there, frozen, eyes locked on hers. Then the grandfather clock in the hall chimed once, though it wasn't the hour and I still hadn't wound it. I turned toward the sound. When I looked back, her mouth had changed, just slightly. A twitch, a smirk, like she knew something I didn't. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face behind my lids. Those eyes, that smirk, and one name repeating in my mind like a whisper under the floorboards. Mercy. It started just after midnight. I was lying in bed, covers pulled to my chest, light off, but the hallway lamp still glowing through the crack beneath the door. I hadn't slept well since I moved in, but that night felt worse, thicker. The air didn't move. The house held its breath. I tried listening to music, something soft, just to drown out the silence. But when I pulled out my earbuds, I heard it, a whisper, soft, faint, like a draft slipping through a crack in the wall. I held still. At first I thought it was wind, maybe the trees outside brushing against the window. But then I heard it again, closer, and this time it said my name, not loud, not urgent, just familiar, intimate. A whisper like someone leaning close enough to feel the warmth of their breath. I sat up. Hello? Nothing. I got out of bed slowly, every floorboard groaning beneath my feet like it hated being touched. I walked to the door, pressed my ear against it. Silence. And then, again, my name, clearer this time, but from somewhere behind me. I turned fast, heart punching against my ribs. No one. I checked every room upstairs, hallway, bathroom. The door at the end of the hall was still locked, still cold. Back in the bedroom, the air had shifted. It smelled sweet, like lilacs, the same scent I noticed when I first walked into the house, but underneath it, ashes again, faint, dry, like something ancient exhaling from the walls. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking. I hadn't told anyone I'd moved in. No social posts, no neighbors, no introductions, no names shared. So how did it know mine? The whisper returned, softer than before. It drifted from the corner of the room, like it didn't care if I heard it or not, like it had all the time in the world. Come downstairs, it said, not a threat, an invitation. I didn't move, I couldn't. And then, just before it faded completely, it whispered again, but not my name. Mercy. And I swear, the painting downstairs whispered it too. I didn't sleep after that. Not even a minute. I just sat there, eyes wide in the dark, waiting for the whisper to come again, and hoping, quietly, deeply, desperately, that it wouldn't. I found the journal on the 5th day. By then, the house had already started to feel less like shelter and more like something watching, breathing, reacting. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just trying to escape the whispers, the creaks, the feeling of eyes on my back. The attic was cramped and smelled like dry wood and forgotten winters. Dust hung in the air like it didn't want to settle. I moved boxes around, hoping for distraction, maybe something to convince me this place had once been normal. That's when I found the loose floorboard. It was near the back wall, half hidden under a moth-eaten trunk. The wood came up with a reluctant groan. Inside, wrapped in rotting linen, was a small leather-bound book. It stuck to my fingers like it wanted to be held. The cover was worn smooth. No title. Just a symbol carved into the leather. Faint, almost invisible, like it had been scratched with a nail. 3 intersecting circles. I opened it. The ink had browned with age, but the handwriting was sharp and slanted, controlled. Page after page of cramped entries, each dated, all from the same year, 1692, the year everything in Salem broke. At first I thought it was just a personal diary, but the voice inside those pages wasn't soft. It wasn't the idle scribbles of a girl dreaming at her window. It was fire, anger, fear. Her name was Mercy, the same name as the girl in the portrait. She wrote about the trials, about the accusations, the neighbors who turned on her, the cold eyes of the judges, the whispering of false friends. She wrote about the cell, the cold, the ropes, the press of hands that held her down. And then she wrote about the fire, not the kind they used in town squares. This was different. She said they lit it under the floorboards, let the smoke crawl up around her as she begged. Not for life, but for truth. No one listened. The final entry chilled me. I will not forget. Not them. Not what they did. I leave behind this book, and when the blood returns to this house, so will I. The name will call me. The guilt will wake me. The fire will open the door. My hands were trembling. I hadn't told anyone I moved in. No one knew my last name, but I did. And on the back page, in faded ink, scrawled in a different hand, Judge Harlan's blood returns. That's my family name. That's my blood. She wasn't just waiting for anyone. She was waiting for me. I wasn't planning to go near the basement again, but something about the journal, about that final entry, kept pulling at me, like her words had teeth and they'd sunk in deep. That night I brought a candle. I don't know why. Maybe it felt older, more honest than a flashlight, something she would have trusted. Maybe part of me thought the darkness would respect it more. The basement door was still sealed, but the air around it had changed, warmer somehow, breathing again. I knelt beside it, placed the candle on the floor, and lit the wick. The flame rose tall and steady. I expected it to flicker, to hesitate in that drafty old house, but it didn't. It burned straight up, unnaturally still. I watched it for a moment, the way it stood there, too rigid, too perfect. Then the shadows started moving, not fast, slow, smooth, not as if something passed in front of the light, but as if the shadows themselves had begun to breathe. They pulsed. The walls around the basement door rippled, faintly, like something underneath them was stirring, like the house was listening. I reached toward the flame. It should have gone out. I blew once. Nothing. Harder. Still burning. I cupped my hands and exhaled straight into it. It didn't even shiver. It just stood there, silent and defiant, like it belonged more to this house than to me. And then I heard it, from the other side of the door. Scratching, not claws, not nails, fingers, soft, slow, dragging along the wood. I stumbled back, breath caught in my throat, heart banging against my ribs like it wanted out. The candle stayed lit. I grabbed it, hesitated, and placed it back where I found it. As I turned to leave, I looked once more at the door, and the flame bent, not with my movement, not with wind. It bowed toward the door, toward her. I backed out of the kitchen, step by step, the candle's glow still painting strange shapes against the walls. Upstairs, I shut the bedroom door and pushed a chair beneath the handle. The candle had never gone out, but inside me, something had. Some line I didn't know I was crossing had burned away. And behind that door, something knew it. Something was waking, something that wanted the light. The first mark appeared the next morning. I woke up groggy, my mouth dry, dreams half forgotten but full of smoke. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and froze. It was on the wall, right next to where I'd been sleeping, etched into the plaster, deep enough to catch light. 3 circles, interlocked, just like the symbol on Mercy's journal. I ran my fingers across it. The grooves were fresh, crisp, like they'd been carved just hours before. I hadn't heard anything during the night, and yet, I knew it hadn't been there before. Not yesterday, not ever. I tried to rationalize. Maybe I missed it during the move. Maybe it had always been there, part of the house's strange, shifting skin. But the more I stared at it, the more my chest tightened. It looked intentional, precise, and it was exactly where my head had rested. I painted over it that afternoon. 2 coats, gone, at least to the eye. But the next morning, it was back. Not the same, different now. This time a jagged triangle, upside down, with a line slashed through the center. Still fresh, still carved, deeper, like it had been angry. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in a chair, lights on, eyes on the wall. Nothing moved, nothing creaked. But when dawn came and I dared to look away, just for a second, I turned back and found it. A third symbol, an eye, wide open, staring directly at me, carved into the exact spot where my gaze had rested all night. I stopped painting over them. I stopped trying to hide. They weren't for decoration. They were messages, marks of progress, proof that something was getting closer. Every night a new shape, every morning a new silence, and each one seemed to hum faintly, like a low vibration just beneath the plaster. I tried to research them, symbols, runes, witchcraft, protection, summoning. Nothing I found matched exactly. They didn't belong to any book. They belonged to her, to this house, to whatever was trying to speak, not with words, with signs. And each mark whispered the same thing. I see you. I remember. I am almost here. I needed answers. The house was marking me, watching me, whispering to me in symbols and shadows. I couldn't pretend it was just old pipes or a tired imagination anymore. So I left, just for a day. Walked into town, down the cobbled streets of Salem where everything feels like a reenactment. Witches on postcards, black cats in souvenir shops, haunted tour signs on every corner. It all felt like a joke now. They'd turned tragedy into a costume. But I wasn't looking for stories. I wanted records. At the public library, an older woman with tight gray curls and eyes like steel asked what I was researching. Gallows Hill, I said. The house is built near it. She didn't smile. Which one? I gave her the address. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. Then quietly, that one. She printed out what little the archives had: a stack of faded files, newspaper clippings, property transfers. I read them at a table near the back, under flickering lights that buzzed like insects. 5 names, 5 tenants over the last 20 years, all marked as missing. No follow-up stories, no closure, just vanished. 3 women, 2 men, all unrelated, all different ages. Each had lived in that house, some for weeks, some for years, gone without a trace. The last one, a grad student named David Flynn, disappeared in 2014. His belongings were found intact: car in the driveway, journal on the kitchen table. The police called it voluntary relocation, but no one ever heard from him again. His final journal entry chilled me. The dreams are louder now. The girl in the hallway smiled this time. I think she wants me to see something beneath the floor. I felt sick. It wasn't just me. It was never just me. This house had a rhythm, a cycle. Every few years, someone new. Then, silence. I asked the librarian if anyone had ever found evidence of foul play. She just stared at me, then said, "Some places aren't haunted because something died there. They're haunted because something survived." I didn't know what that meant. Not yet. I took the copies and left. The wind outside had picked up, cold, sharp. It pushed against me like it wanted me to go back. And as I walked toward the house, toward Gallows Hill, the sky darkened too quickly, like it knew I'd learned too much, and it was ready for the next chapter. It didn't happen all at once. Her voice crept in the way water seeps through cracks. Slow, patient, impossible to stop once it's begun. The first time I was washing dishes, hands in warm water, mind drifting, a normal moment, familiar, safe. Then I heard it, a girl's voice, soft, close, inside. "You found the book." I froze, soap dripping from my fingers. The room suddenly too still, too quiet. I looked around, no one. But the voice didn't come from around me, it came from within me, like a memory I didn't have, like a dream speaking out loud. "You opened it, you saw, now you have to help me." I backed away from the sink, hands shaking. "No," I said, "no, I'm not. This isn't happening." The voice didn't argue, she whispered, "Find me." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, she was there, not standing in front of me, not hovering in the corner, inside my skull, behind my thoughts. They buried me beneath the house. I saw flashes, dirt-stained fingers, a small hand reaching through wood, a scream with no sound. I sat up, drenched in sweat. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're not real, you're just in my head." And then she answered, calmly, clearly, "Yes, and you let me in." The next morning I found words written on the mirror, not scratched, not drawn in dust, written in steam. "Under wood, ash." I hadn't taken a shower yet. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trapped, somewhere beneath this house, buried in secrets and silence. And she was getting stronger. Each word was clearer than the last, each whisper louder, more urgent. "They made me disappear," she said. "But you can bring me back." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what it would cost. But I believed her, because her voice wasn't cold. It wasn't monstrous. It was tired. So tired. And beneath that weariness, something else pulsed like a heartbeat. Rage, a quiet, waiting fire. I stood in the hallway, hand on the wall, listening as her voice circled inside my head. "Find my bones. Set me free." and part of me already knew. The house wouldn't let me leave until I did. I went back to the library the next day. I needed help, real help. Someone who knew the town, the stories, the buried parts no one put on postcards. That's when I met her. She was reshelving a stack of books with quick, precise movements, as if she didn't like the idea of things being out of place. Hair pinned back in a silver twist, glasses low on her nose, eyes that didn't miss a thing. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you the librarian?" She looked up. "I'm Grace. You must be the one asking about Gallows Hill." Her voice was clipped, measured, not unfriendly, but cautious. "I was hoping you could help me," I said. She set down the books and led me to a side table near the archives. "What are you looking for exactly?" she asked. I hesitated, then quietly. The name Mercy B from 1692. Something in her changed, barely, a twitch of her jaw, the way her fingers tightened on the edge of the table. She sat down slowly. "You've been reading," she said. "I found a journal. I think it was hers, and a painting, and other things." Grace didn't blink. "There are stories," she said. "Old ones, faded. People don't like to talk about her." "Why?" she exhaled. "Because Mercy was different, even before they accused her. People said she heard things, saw things, things no one else could. Some claimed she called storms. Others swore she could speak without moving her lips." She paused. "Even the other girls feared her." I leaned forward. "Did she die in the trials?" Grace shook her head. "No, they never made it official. She disappeared before she could be sentenced. Some say she ran. Others say the town made her disappear quietly. No gallows, no fire. Buried her." Grace's eyes narrowed. "What exactly have you found?" I told her everything. The door, the voice, the marks, the dreams. I left nothing out. When I said the name again, Mercy, Grace flinched. "Stop saying it." Her tone was sharp now, a crack in her careful calm. "Why?" I asked. She stood up. "Names have power," she said, "especially that one." I watched her gather the books again, her hands now trembling. "She was wronged," I said quietly. "She was dangerous," Grace snapped. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Then she looked at me, really looked at me. "Get out of that house before she finishes what she started." And with that, she walked away, leaving me alone, more certain than ever that Mercy had never left at all. She found me the next day. I didn't expect it, not after how she left. But I was walking through the town square, trying to clear my head, and there she was. Grace, standing by the statue of the accused, arms crossed, like she'd been waiting for me. "I shouldn't have walked away," she said, "but you need to understand something." I followed her to a small cafe off the main street. We sat in the corner, away from the windows, where the light couldn't quite reach us. "What I told you yesterday," she began, "was the history everyone knows, the sanitized version, the kind people dress up for." She looked over her shoulder before leaning in. "But the trials never ended." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "There were the 19 who died in 1692. Everyone knows that. What they don't know, what they refuse to see, is that the pattern didn't stop." She pulled a folder from her bag. Old news clippings, death certificates, yellowed paper that smelled like secrets. I flipped through them. Drownings, disappearances, fires, all strange, all unsolved, all within 10 miles of Gallows Hill. "These names," she said, "they all had one thing in common." "What?" "They were descendants of the accusers, the judges, the men and women who pointed fingers and lit the fires." I swallowed. "And now?" She nodded. "It's still happening. Quiet, sporadic, But the timing lines up. Every few years, another one. Always someone with blood tied to 1692. My fingers clenched the folder tighter. You're saying she's punishing them? I'm saying something is. I looked at her. The words almost stuck in my throat. My family, I said. The name Harlan. My great-grandfather traced us back. One of the original judges. Grace didn't look surprised. She's marked you. I felt cold, hollow. She doesn't just want revenge, Grace added. She wants balance. She wants someone to see, to feel what she felt, to carry the weight. The room felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. Why me? I whispered. Because you opened the door, Grace said. You listened. Most people ignore it. They run, they leave. But you, she paused. You stayed. Outside, the sky had darkened, too quickly. The cafe lights flickered once, then again. I don't think she wants to kill you, Grace said. Not yet. I looked down at the folder, at the names, at the patterns. She wants something else. Grace nodded. She wants to be remembered. And in that moment I realized the witch trials weren't just history here. They were ritual, and I was next in line. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was mercy, pressing in on my thoughts like smoke under a door. Maybe I was already too far gone. But that night I lit the candles, drew the circles, whispered the names. It's called the mirror ritual. I found it in one of the pages of Mercy's journal, tucked between rants and memories, half in Latin, half in English. She called it a window for the bound. The instructions were simple. You needed still water, a mirror, and silence. The kind of silence you only get after midnight, when even the house stops pretending. I sat on the floor in front of the mirror, an old one I dragged up from the attic, framed in black, tall enough to see myself from the waist up. I placed the bowl of water at its base, lit 5 candles, one for each point of the star I'd drawn on the floor in chalk. Then I said her name, once, twice, 3 times, and waited. At first, nothing, just my reflection, pale, wide-eyed, the flicker of flames dancing over my face. Then the room grew colder. I could see my breath, though the windows were shut. The mirror fogged slowly from the inside, and behind my reflection, something moved. Not a shape, a shadow, a suggestion. I leaned in. The glass pulsed like it was breathing. Then, without warning, it cracked. Not a hairline fracture. A jagged line right down the center, like lightning frozen in silver. And from the mirror, a scream, high, human, female, but not just fear, pain, grief, rage. It filled the room like wind, knocked over 2 of the candles. The others flared bright, then died. And the bowl of water? Boiled. I stumbled back, ears ringing, heart crashing in my chest like a trapped bird. The mirror kept cracking, more lines spiderwebbing out like veins in glass skin. And behind the shards I saw her, just for a second, a face, pale, eyes hollow, wide, endless, lips moving without sound. Mercy. Then she vanished. The mirror fell forward and shattered on the floor. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence. It was charged, alive, like something had come through, or was trying to. I didn't clean up the glass. I just backed out of the room, step by step, leaving the pieces where they fell. Because in every shard I saw her face. And I swear, in one of them, she blinked. It started the night after the mirror shattered. I fell asleep without meaning to, curled in a chair downstairs, fully clothed, too afraid to go back to my room. I told myself I'd just rest my eyes. Just for a minute, but the minute stretched, and then I was somewhere else. I was standing barefoot in the dirt. The air was thick, wet, heavy with pine and smoke. My dress, no, her dress, was rough against my skin. Too tight at the throat, torn at the hem. My hands were smaller, my legs thinner, my hair heavy against my back, and my heart was pounding so loud I thought it might burst. Because they were coming. Torches moved through the trees like angry stars. Voices shouting over each other. Names, prayers, accusations. I turned to run, but stumbled. Chains. My ankles were shackled. And that's when I realized I wasn't watching her memory. I was inside it. I was her. Mercy. I felt her fear rise like fire in my chest. Her fury twist in my throat. Her breath was shallow, fast. Not because she was weak, because she knew what came next. They grabbed me, hands like claws, pulling at my arms, my hair, dragging me forward. No trial, no words, just violence disguised as righteousness. They shoved me into the barn, locked the doors, and then the smoke. They didn't light a pyre. They burned the foundation. Let the fire eat upward. I screamed, not for help, for someone to see me, to believe me. And when no one came, the fear turned to something else, something darker, a promise. They would forget my voice, but they would remember my name. I woke up gasping, cold sweat, shirt clinging to my back, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the glass of water I reached for. It wasn't just a dream. It was a memory. Not mine. Hers. Left behind like a fingerprint in ash. And every night after, it grew worse. I felt the rope on my wrists, the blood in my mouth, the dirt in my lungs. And when I looked in the mirror each morning, I wasn't sure what scared me more. That I was still me, or that I wasn't. Because Mercy wasn't fading. She was filling me, layer by layer, thought by thought. And I didn't know where she ended. And I began. I couldn't take it anymore. The whispers, the dreams, the shadows that flickered just past the corners of my eyes. Something was bleeding through, and I needed it to stop. So I did what every terrified, half-broken person does when they've run out of logic. I turned to superstition. I bought a box of sea salt from the corner store. 3 candles, white, unscented, clean, pure. I didn't even make it to midnight. I cleared the living room floor, pushed the furniture aside, turned off every light in the house, and I made the circle. Salt poured slowly, evenly, trembling from my hand as I walked it around me, step by step, like drawing a line between me and something I couldn't name. I lit the candles, placed them at the points of a triangle inside the ring. Then I sat in the center, cross-legged, eyes closed, breathing shallow. The house creaked around me like it was annoyed or amused. I whispered her name once. Mercy. No response. Not this time. Just the low hum of the house settling deeper into itself. I stayed there for hours, waiting, listening. At some point, I must have dozed off. I woke to silence, thick, suffocating. And then I saw it, just a few feet in front of me, pressed into the salt. A footprint, bare, small, right foot, inside the circle. The salt hadn't been broken, no trail leading in. Just one perfect print, as if someone had appeared inside the line, or had always been there with me. I froze. My body refused to move. My breath turned cold. Then the candle to my left flickered violently. The flame bent toward the footprint, like it was bowing. I whispered, "You're not supposed to be in here." No answer. The print didn't vanish. Another appeared beside it. Left foot. Closer now. Toward me. I didn't wait for a third. I broke the circle with my hand and scrambled backward, knocking over one of the candles. The flames snuffed out instantly. Darkness swallowed the room like water, and in the silence that followed, a single word whispered against my ear. "Why are you afraid?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the truth was, I didn't know if I was scared of Mercy or scared of what part of me wanted to let her in. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. No one calls at that hour unless something's wrong. I stared at the screen. No caller ID. Just the word, unknown. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered. Silence, but not empty silence. I could hear breathing. Shallow. Controlled. I didn't say anything. Neither did they. And then, a voice, low, flat, genderless, not distorted, not mechanical, just blank. "You're next," it said. My stomach flipped. "What?" The voice didn't repeat itself. It just kept going. "Her cycle isn't finished. She still remembers." I stood in the middle of the kitchen, barefoot, heart pounding, salt still crusted on the floor from the failed ritual. "Who is this?" I demanded. More silence. Then, "She's been patient. This house feeds her slow. You opened the door. You answered the call." My throat went dry. "This is a joke," I said, though it didn't even sound like me. The voice ignored it. "6 before you. All marked, all gone." Gone how? They broke, or burned, or vanished. She doesn't always choose. I felt my grip tighten on the phone. My fingers ached. "What does she want from me?" I whispered. The voice paused. Then calmly, "Memory." "What?" "Mercy is not a ghost. She is a wound. She doesn't haunt. She repeats." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "You carry his blood," the voice said. "She carries the fire." "Who are you?" I asked again. The voice sighed, soft, almost sad. "I was the 5th. Click. The line went dead. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to light up again. It didn't. I checked the call log. Nothing. Not even a missed call, as if it never happened. Outside, the wind picked up. Dry leaves scraped across the windows like fingernails. I didn't move for a long time, because something about that voice, the calmness, the certainty, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a countdown. And for the first time since I moved into that house, I understood something deep in my bones. This wasn't about fear. It was about debt. And Mercy had waited 3 centuries for someone to pay. I didn't sleep after the call. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun rose, staring at nothing, listening to the refrigerator hum and the floor creak when no one walked across it. That voice haunted me more than the dreams. She is a wound. I kept hearing that, over and over, like a riddle I already knew the answer to, but didn't want to say aloud. I pulled out the journal again. Mercy's handwriting, sharp, tight, desperate, ran across the pages like veins. There was pain there, so much of it, but something else too, precision. She remembered names, descriptions, every face that sat above her and passed judgment. One of them was Harlan, my name. At first I tried to deny it. I told myself it was a coincidence. Lots of names carry through generations. But that night I dug out the old family records my father once kept. Genealogy stuff he obsessed over before he passed. And there it was, Judge Ephraim Harlan, presiding judge, 1692. He wasn't just part of the trials. He was the one who signed her sentence. The man who listened to a terrified girl scream her innocence and chose to ignore her. My blood was his. The shame hit like ice. Cold, immediate, paralyzing. I tried to breathe through it, tried to convince myself it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't him, that I didn't do anything. But the house disagreed. The marks on the walls grew deeper that day, the smell of ash stronger, the shadows longer, even in daylight, because it didn't matter what I believed. To Mercy, I was him, his echo, his flesh, his debt. And the more I denied it, the louder her presence became. She didn't want revenge. She wanted recognition, not just to be remembered, but to be seen by the eyes of the man who silenced her, even if those eyes were mine. That night, I stood in the hallway outside the locked door. I didn't knock. I whispered, "I know who I am." The air turned sharp, heavy, like the house exhaled through its walls. "I'm sorry," I said. Silence. Then softly from behind the wood, "Not enough." And I realized something I'd been avoiding since the first night. This wasn't about haunting. This was about justice. Twisted, ancient, personal, and whether I liked it or not, I was now a part of her trial. It happened during a storm. The rain came down in sheets, loud and relentless, pounding the roof like fists. The power flickered once, then cut out entirely. No lights, no hum of appliances, just the sound of water and wind, and the house creaking like it was remembering. I lit a single candle, walked through the dark halls barefoot, drawn by something I couldn't name. The floor felt wrong that night, softer, like it wasn't solid beneath me, like something underneath had started to rise. In the living room, I heard it, a thump, then another, and then crack. The floor gave way beneath my feet. I didn't fall far, just enough to crash through the rotted boards and slam hard into something cold and wet. I gasped, breath knocked out of me, the candle bouncing away, flames snuffed out in the dark. Silence. Then a drip, drip, drip. I tried to stand, but my foot sank into something soft. Not dirt, not mud, cloth. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and turned on the flashlight. That's when I saw it, the noose, hanging from a splintered beam above me. Old, frayed, still swaying, like it remembered movement. And below it, a pit, 6 feet wide, maybe deeper. I moved closer. The air grew colder with every step. The smell, earth, rot, and something metallic grew thicker. I shined the light into the pit, and I saw it. Not bones, not remains, not yet. Just blood, fresh, still glistening, still dripping from the wood above. My breath caught. There was no one else in the house, no source. Just a pool of red in the darkness where there should have been nothing. And beside it, carved into the dirt wall, those same 3 circles, interlocked, Mercy's mark. I stumbled back, heart pounding so hard I thought it might split my chest open. The air grew dense, alive. Then I heard her, right behind me, a breath, a whisper, not a word this time, just sound, grief and fury, braided together into something primal. I scrambled up, clawing through splinters, pulling myself back into the house. The boards around the hole had turned black, charred, but there was no fire, just the memory of one. I collapsed against the wall, trying to steady my breath. The rain kept falling outside, but beneath this house, something else had started to rise, and it was bleeding through, one drop at a time. I woke to the smell of smoke, not the cold scent of old ashes that had haunted the house before, but fresh, hot, alive. I shot up in bed, chest tight, throat already stinging. The room flickered with light, orange, moving, fire. I stumbled out into the hallway barefoot, heart crashing against my ribs. The walls were glowing, shadows dancing across them like they were trying to crawl free. Smoke curled down the stairs in lazy tendrils. I couldn't breathe. The air was thick, choking. I called out. Nothing. Just the hiss and crackle of flame, growing louder with every step. I reached the landing and froze. The entire living room was burning. Flames licked up the curtains, crawled across the ceiling beams, roared up the walls like they'd been waiting there all along. The floor was blackened, warping under the heat. But nothing moved. No wood crumbled. No fabric burned. The fire was there, but it wasn't destroying anything. I took a step closer, hand over my mouth. The couch sat in the center of the blaze, untouched. The books on the shelves, still in place. The portrait of Mercy above the fireplace stared back at me through a curtain of flame. And then, in the center of it all, she appeared, not standing, not walking, floating. Her dress billowed as if underwater, her eyes fixed on mine, bright and burning. She didn't speak. She just watched, judging, waiting. I backed away, stumbling into the wall, heart screaming inside me. Then I blinked, and it was gone. The flames, the heat, the smoke, gone. The room was cold, still, dark, not a single candle lit. The furniture sat in silence, untouched. I dropped to my knees, coughing hard, eyes stinging from nothing. Was it real? Was it her? Or was I finally losing my mind? But then I saw it, the scorch mark on the floor, right where she had floated, black, charred, fresh, still warm. I touched it with trembling fingers. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a dream. It was a warning. She didn't want to hurt the house. She wanted to show me what it felt like, to be burned, to be erased, to scream and vanish and leave nothing behind but smoke and memory. I sat there in the silence, breath shallow, skin cold, and I realized she wasn't just haunting me. She was reenacting her death, piece by piece, until I felt it all. I hadn't touched the journal in days. I was afraid of it, afraid of what it might say next. But that morning, something pulled me to it. The air was thick, expectant, like the house was holding its breath. The journal sat on my desk, closed but humming with presence. I opened it slowly, flipping past the old entries. Mercy's voice pressed into each page like scar tissue. Then I found it. A new entry, fresh ink. The handwriting wasn't hers, it was mine. My script, my slant, my pressure. But I hadn't written it. I know I hadn't. Still, there it was. Date, today, time, sometime between midnight and dawn. The entry began softly. He finally understands. The fire, the silence, the scream no one heard. It's in his bones now. My hands went numb. The next line, I carried her name like it was a curse, but it's not. It's a mirror. I see her in me now. I feel her rage under my skin, curled tight like smoke. I flipped the pages in panic. Another entry and another, page after page, written in my voice, but speaking her thoughts. He tried to ignore me, deny me, paint over the marks, seal the doors, but my blood calls to his. We are tangled now. His guilt is mine. My vengeance is his. I couldn't breathe. He will finish what they started. No, this wasn't happening. I didn't write this. I didn't write this. But the pen still sat beside the journal, uncapped, fresh ink on the tip, and my fingers stained black. As if I had written through the night in some sleep deeper than dreaming. I read the last line again. He will finish what they started. The word finish was underlined, twice. Beneath it, a single symbol, the I. open, watching, judging. Me. I slammed the book shut, heart hammering, breath coming too fast. She wasn't whispering anymore. She was speaking through me, writing through me, using me, and worse, part of me was letting her, because deep down, in the pit of everything I was, I wanted her to be heard. I wanted her to have her voice back, even if it meant losing mine, even if it meant she never left at all, just waited, patient, vengeful, and now, finally, writing her ending with my hand. It started with the small things, forgetting where I left my keys, finding the front door unlocked in the morning, the salt I'd poured in a protective ring suddenly gone, scattered across the floor like it had been swept away. Then came the blackouts. The first time I woke up on the staircase, it was still dark. My back ached. My mouth was dry. I had no memory of leaving bed, just the lingering scent of lilacs and dirt. The second time, I was outside, in the garden, barefoot. The soles of my feet were caked in mud. My hands were trembling. My shirt was soaked with dew. I don't even remember opening the door, and it was locked behind me, as if I'd never gone out through it at all. I tried to write it off. Stress, sleepwalking, trauma, any excuse I could reach for in the dark. But I knew better. Something was cracking inside me. Each day I felt it. A little more pressure behind the eyes, a little more silence in my head where thoughts used to be. And then there were the voices, not whispers this time, not mercy. Me, saying things I didn't remember saying. I'd find scraps of paper with sentences scrawled in my own handwriting, words I didn't recognize. She never left. Beneath, beneath, beneath. Your skin is just a door. I stopped looking in mirrors. Every time I did, I thought I saw her, just for a second, behind my eyes, smiling. Once I woke up with dirt under my fingernails, packed deep, crusted in my cuticles. I ran to the sink and scrubbed until they bled. I hadn't been outside, not that I could remember. But when I looked in the mirror that morning, I was smiling, and I didn't remember why. It was subtle, a slow bleed. Like someone was pouring themselves into me, drop by drop, day by day. Mercy didn't need to break me. She just needed to wear me down. Until I stopped asking whose thoughts were whose. Until I stopped trying to stop her. And a part of me, dark, tired, quiet, had already started to welcome the weight. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of disappearing. I was afraid of how good it felt. To let her in, to let her speak, to let her rage curl inside me like smoke. And I wondered, when the last part of me slipped away, would I even notice? Grace called me just after dusk. Her voice was tight, urgent. Meet me, now! I know where she is. I didn't ask questions. I didn't have the strength to argue. She gave me directions. North end of town, just beyond the wrought iron gates of the old graveyard. The one tourists never visit, the one the locals never talk about. I drove in silence, the windows down, the air sharp, filled with the scent of wet leaves and something else beneath it, earth that's been disturbed. Grace was already there when I arrived, standing by a crooked row of headstones, coat pulled tight against the wind. She didn't wave, just nodded for me to follow. This part of the cemetery, she said, leading me through the tall grass, wasn't meant for remembrance. It was for forgetting. The moonlight filtered through the trees, silver and thin, casting long shadows that moved when we didn't. She stopped in front of a stone so weathered the name was barely legible. I had to crouch to read it. M.B., 16982. No last name, no epitaph, no dates of birth or death, just that. I reached out to touch the stone and saw the crack, a jagged fracture like lightning frozen in granite, splitting the marker down the center, and beneath it, fresh soil, turned recently, loosened, dark. I looked at Grace. This can't be real. She was buried in secret, she said. No ceremony, no coffin. They didn't want her remembered. But someone kept the memory alive. I stared at the dirt. It looked like it had been breathing. Grace stepped back, giving me space. She's waking, she said. You know that. You feel it. I don't know where she ends and I begin anymore, I whispered. Grace's face softened. For the first time since we met, she looked afraid. She chose you. She's using you. But she's also asking. For what? Grace hesitated. To be found. To be seen. After all these years, she wants to rise on her own terms. I looked at the cracked stone again, at the ground that refused to stay still. I didn't know what I believed anymore, but I knew this. That grave wasn't just a marker. It was a promise, one carved in silence and sealed with fire. She's not in there, I said softly. Grace nodded. Not all of her. The wind shifted, low and cold, curling around our ankles like fingers. She's waiting, I said, and for the first time, I didn't know if I meant mercy or me. That night I didn't dream. I fell, straight down. No light, no sound. Just the sensation of sinking, slow, endless, like the air had turned to water and I was slipping through its depths. And then suddenly I was standing, in the woods, barefoot again, the ground wet beneath my feet, trees rising high above, skeletal branches reaching like hands toward a sky I couldn't see. In the center of the clearing stood Mercy. She wasn't floating this time. She stood still, quiet, dressed in smoke and shadow. Her eyes caught the faintest glint of moonlight, too bright, too knowing. I couldn't speak. I didn't need to. She raised one hand, palm up. Blood pooled in the center, not dripping, floating, alive. And then I heard it, not in my ears but in my skull, her voice low and slow and steady. One soul for silence. Behind her a second figure appeared, shrouded, featureless, no face, no form, just a shape, a presence. It pulsed with heat, then with pain. Then it shifted. For a moment it looked like me, then Grace, then the judge, then no one at all. I stepped back. What do you want? I managed to whisper. Her lips didn't move. Balance. I looked at my hands. They were covered in blood. I hadn't moved, hadn't touched anything, but my skin was red and slick, fresh. She stepped closer. He spoke the sentence. He poured the oil. He turned away. I nodded. He's gone. That judge. He's dust. But his blood is not. She pointed to me, then to the shape behind her. One of you must pay. The trees around us groaned, the air crackling like kindling. Offer the soul of the betrayer, or become the next. My heart slammed against my ribs. Is it me? I asked. She tilted her head. Not yes, not no. Then I saw it. A vision, fast and sharp like lightning behind my eyes. Grace screaming, tide burning, her voice becoming mine. My skin splitting open with heat, my breath taken by smoke. I fell to my knees. The blood on my hands had turned to ash. Mercy turned away and vanished into the trees, leaving the shape behind, still standing, still waiting. I woke gasping, drenched in sweat, throat raw like I'd been breathing fire. And I understood the offer. One soul, one end. Either I give her what she wants, or I become what she needs. The betrayer, the sacrifice, the next to burn. The town was too quiet that day, not empty, just watching. Shops were open, lights glowing in windows, cars on the road, but no one spoke. Not even in passing. Not even a nod. People moved like they were under some unseen weight, heads down, eyes distant, like something was coming, and they all knew it. I wandered, trying to ground myself. I needed to feel normal, needed to find anything that reminded me I was still real, still me. But every street I turned down led me somewhere I didn't mean to go, until I reached the park at the edge of town and saw the gathering. At first, I thought it was a funeral, a small group, maybe a dozen people standing in a circle near the old elm trees. No one spoke, no phones, no movement, just stillness. Then I saw the candles, 12, placed in the dirt at even intervals, burning in daylight. Their flames didn't flicker, even with the wind. My feet moved before I realized. I stepped closer, and then I saw her, Grace, standing at the edge of the circle, head bowed, eyes closed. She didn't look at me, didn't flinch, didn't speak, like I wasn't there, or wasn't supposed to be. I didn't call her name. Something in me, something deeper than logic, told me not to. They began to hum, low, soft, like breath through teeth, a sound that didn't vibrate through the air, but through me, through the ground beneath my feet. One voice, then two, then all of them. Grace joined in, her lips moving without sound. The language, if it was one, was old, wrong. It made my skin crawl. The trees bent slightly, their branches angling toward the circle like they were listening. And the flames, they grew taller, not wild, just impossibly still, like they knew they were being watched. Then without warning, every head in the circle turned toward me, eyes open, blank, empty. Even Grace. Her face didn't register surprise or guilt or fear, just silence, recognition, as if she knew I would come, as if they'd called me. I stepped back. No one followed, no one moved. They just watched as I turned and walked away. My ears still rang with the sound of that hum, and I realized something as the distance between us grew. They weren't trying to summon mercy. They were trying to contain her, and whatever she was becoming, they weren't sure they could hold it back. I don't know when I stopped saying my own name. Maybe it was the dreams, the whispers, the way the walls sighed when I passed by like they were breathing me in. Or maybe it was the mirror, the one I covered weeks ago, afraid of what I might see. This morning it was uncovered, no dust, no cracks, just standing there in the hallway facing the light. I didn't remember touching it. I didn't want to look, but I did. At first, everything seemed normal. My face, my eyes, pale skin, tired. But then my reflection blinked, and I didn't. Just a split-second delay, barely noticeable, unless you were waiting for it. I leaned closer. The reflection smiled, and I didn't. I stumbled back, hit the wall behind me. My chest was heaving, the hallway spinning. I called out, nothing. No voice, no echo, only silence. Then I heard her, not outside, not around, inside, not whispering anymore, not hiding, just there. You're almost ready. I gripped the edge of the hallway table, fingers white, breath sharp. This is my body, I said aloud, though my voice cracked on the word my. The mirror laughed, a short, soft breath, not mocking, almost loving. You let me in. I turned away, walked fast, downstairs into the kitchen. I needed light, air, something real. But even the windows looked different now. Too still, too dark. I looked down at my hands. They weren't mine. Fingers too thin, nails chipped, ash beneath them. I dropped to the floor, knees buckling. Who am I? The question echoed. Louder than my heartbeat, louder than the wind outside, and the answer came, not in voice, but in sensation, in weight, in fire, in her. I crawled to the bathroom, grabbed the edge of the sink, hauled myself up, and stared once more into the mirror. The reflection was waiting. Same face, different eyes, older, smarter, angrier. And then she said it. Through me, in me, as me. My name is Mercy. The lights flickered, the glass trembled, and I didn't look away, because a part of me agreed. A part of me wanted to say it too, not as a name, as a truth, as a warning, as a promise. I'm losing myself. Or maybe she's finally becoming whole. Grace met me at the edge of the woods just past the old fence where the trees grow too close together and the ground feels soft, like it's hiding something. She had a bundle of herbs in one hand, a rusted tin bowl in the other. Her face was drawn, pale. She didn't say much, just looked at me like I was already halfway gone. Don't speak, she said. Just stand still. I wanted to argue, to ask what she was going to do, but I couldn't trust my voice. Not anymore. It didn't always sound like mine these days. We stepped into a circle of stones she'd laid out earlier. Salt dusted the perimeter, symbols drawn in ash. She lit the herbs and thick white smoke coiled upward into the dusk. Sage, she whispered. Mugwort, pine. She began to chant, low, steady, ancient syllables that didn't belong in this century. The smoke wrapped around me, hot, smothering. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on the sound of her voice, on the warmth of the flame, on anything that might anchor me. At first it worked. The tightness in my chest eased. The buzzing in my head dimmed. But then I felt her stir, deep inside, like a yawn from a long sleep. And she laughed. Not out loud. Inside me. A slow, curling sound that filled my skull like smoke. How sweet, Mercy said. She still thinks fire can cleanse me. I flinched. The flame surged higher in the bowl. Grace's voice shook, but she didn't stop. The wind kicked up around us, sharp and sudden. The herbs burned faster, too fast. And then the bowl shattered. The fire went out. The smoke died, and I dropped to my knees, not from pain, from pressure, a weight behind my ribs pushing out, like something wanted more room. Grace rushed to my side. She grabbed my face, forced me to look at her. Fight her, she said, eyes wild. You're stronger. You have to fight. I opened my mouth to answer, but I didn't speak. She did. You're too late, Grace. The voice came out in a calm, perfect mimic of my tone, but it wasn't me. Grace pulled back like she'd been burned. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered, "Oh God, she's already inside." I smiled, and again, it wasn't me, because deep inside, I was screaming, pounding on the walls of my own body. And Mercy, she was laughing, warm, satisfied, free. It didn't feel like a dream. There was no fade in, no slow awareness, no drifting, just a snap. And suddenly, I was somewhere else. The air was heavier, thicker with wood smoke and fear. I stood in the middle of a dirt road, horses clopping in the distance, wooden signs creaking in the wind. The houses were smaller, darker, windows shuttered, doors bolted, and the silence. It was sharp, like everyone was waiting for something terrible to happen, or had already seen it. I turned disoriented, stumbling toward a crowd gathered near the town square. They didn't see me. They moved past me, through me, shadows wearing skin, men in cloaks, women in bonnets, holding children too tightly. faces etched with suspicion. I tried to speak, but no sound came. I wasn't in the world. I was buried inside it, a memory. No, a reckoning. The crowd parted, revealing the wooden platform at the center, a makeshift courtroom, and seated at the head of it all was me, or someone who wore my face. Older, stricter, black robes, wide collar, eyes like ice in judgment. He was writing with a quill, slow strokes on parchment that screamed with every scrape. The other judges murmured. The accused stood in chains. A girl, 12, maybe 13, dirty, thin, her hair matted with ash, her lips cracked, her eyes locked on mine, even though I was invisible. Mercy. They spoke her name like a curse. Mercy Barnett, accused of witchcraft, blasphemy, and consorting with the devil. The crowd hissed. She didn't flinch. She stood tall, even with her wrists bound. The judge, my ancestor, asked no questions. He didn't look at her. He read the charges, wrote the sentence. And as he dipped the pen in ink again, the tip snapped. Blood. From his fingertip, not the quill. A drop fell onto the parchment. The writing blurred. He looked up, and for a heartbeat, I saw me. Not as I am now, but wearing his face. And Mercy, she smiled. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew I was watching. I tried to move, tried to scream, to stop it. But the words had already been spoken. The sentence already passed. No fire, no gallows, just silence. They dragged her away. Her eyes never left mine, even as time shattered around us. Even as the square turned to ash. Even as the world spun forward again, dragging me with it. I woke in my bed, gasping, but my hands, they were stained with ink and blood, as if I'd written the sentence all over again. It wasn't a dream this time. It was too real, too sharp. Every sound, every breath, every tremor in my bones. I felt it all. I was no longer watching. I was her. Mercy. The sky was gray, hung low with clouds so heavy they seemed to press the world down with them. The air tasted like smoke and fear. Damp dirt clung to my bare feet as they dragged me across the grass. My wrists were bound in front of me. Rough rope cut into the skin, soaked in sweat and blood. My fingers twitched with the urge to fight, to claw, to scream. But I didn't. I walked, because I knew it was over. Not in the way children fear the dark, but in the way women fear the silence of a locked door. I was led to a wooden frame, tall, crude, built in haste. No crowd this time. No trial, no witnesses, just men in cloaks. And the rope. It swung in the breeze, already knotted, waiting. They didn't speak. They didn't pray. They placed the noose over my head, tightened it around my throat. I felt the weight of it settle like a hand on my shoulder. And in that moment, I remembered everything. Not just the pain, not just the betrayal, but the why. I wasn't killed because I was wicked. I was killed because I saw, because I listened to the wind and heard truth in it, because I healed a boy when a preacher could not, because I looked a man in the eye when he told me to bow, because I was a girl who would not be quiet. They called it witchcraft. They called it sin. But all I had was light, and they feared what it revealed. They built the gallows not for my soul, but for their own shame. I felt the wood beneath my feet, heard the rope creak above. A hand pushed my shoulder, and I fell. But there was no pain, no struggle, just silence, deep, endless. And in that silence, I understood. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to be known, to be seen, not as a curse, but as a warning, as a truth buried in unmarked earth. I woke gasping, the taste of rope still in my mouth. fingers at my throat, expecting to feel the knot. But I was alone, alive, and forever changed, because now I didn't just remember her death. I lived it, and part of me, some ancient, burning part, would never let it go. I came back gasping. Sweat clung to my skin, cold and sharp. My throat ached, my fingers still curled in fists. For a moment, I didn't know where or who I was. Then I saw the room, the candlelight, the boards beneath me, the journal resting on the floor, open to a page I hadn't written. I was home, but I wasn't alone. The air around me pulsed with pressure. The walls seemed to hum, alive, awake. Mercy was everywhere now, in the floorboards, the glass, the air itself, and in me. I felt her like a second heartbeat, not just whispering anymore, but breathing through my lungs, blinking through my eyes. Then the world tilted, the floor dissolved into black, and I stood once more, in that place between, not past, not present, just stillness. Mercy was there, standing in front of me. Her face was mine, or maybe mine was hers. It no longer mattered. Between us floated a flame, small, pale, flickering. She spoke without sound. "It ends with you." The flame split into two. One flickered brighter, warm, gentle. The other, blue, cold, steady. Two paths. "Let go," she said, motioning to the warm one. "Forgive, bury it, leave it buried." Then she pointed to the cold one. "Or finish it." "Finish what?" I asked. "The cycle." I understood. To forgive them, those who wronged her, the bloodline that fed her fury, was to set her free, to end the haunting, to let her vanish into memory. But the other path, that was fire, that was voice, that was justice, the kind that tears through generations and eats the silence from the inside out. "Why me?" I asked. Her gaze softened. "Because you listened." The flames flickered, waiting. One choice would close the door, the other would break it forever. I stared at the warm flame. I wanted to want it, but behind me echoed screams not mine. Chains, laughter, ropes, ash, and Mercy's voice again, softer this time. "You carry the weight, so decide what to do with it." The flames drifted closer. Time pulsed. And in that space between breaths, I realized it wasn't just her soul on the line, it was mine. Because whichever path I chose, I wouldn't walk out unchanged. Mercy wasn't asking for vengeance. She was offering it, and now it was mine to accept or refuse. The house was too quiet, not peaceful, hollow, like something had been pulled out of it, or like it was holding its breath. It was the final night. I felt it. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I knew it was coming. The whispers had stopped. The walls no longer creaked. The shadows no longer reached for me. Even the smell of ash was gone, replaced by something faint and unfamiliar. Lilacs, the scent from the first day, full circle. I moved from room to room, barefoot, candle in hand. The flame didn't flicker. It was too still, too perfect, like the house didn't dare disturb it. In the hallway upstairs, the locked door at the end stood open. I hadn't touched it. I stood there, heart quiet, unsure if I was meant to enter. But something called, not a voice, not a whisper, a pull. Inside, the room was empty. No furniture, no dust, just wooden floors and cracked walls. And in the center, a mark burned into the floor. 3 circles, interlocked, still warm. I stepped inside and sat beside it. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just listened. For once, there was no fear, no anger, only silence. And then, soft footsteps on the stairs. I didn't move. I didn't need to. Whatever was coming, I had already invited it. She appeared in the doorway, not a ghost, not a girl, something in between. Mercy. Her eyes met mine, and I didn't look away. I wasn't sure who I was in that moment, but I knew who we were, bound, not by blood, by memory, by the echo of truth that refused to stay buried. She stepped into the circle. The room dimmed, the air thickened, but there was no threat, only presence. "It's almost time," she said. I nodded. "I know." She reached for my hand. Her skin was warm, and as her fingers touched mine, the candle blew out. Darkness swallowed the room, but it wasn't empty. It was full, with everything unsaid, everything unseen. The house didn't breathe, it waited. The final night had come, but whether it would bring peace or fire was no longer up to the house, it was up to me, and I still hadn't chosen. It began as a hum, soft, low, floating through the floorboards like a memory born of dust. I was lying awake staring at the ceiling, the candle long since burned down to a stub. The house was still, but the sound moved. It curled through the walls, slid beneath the door, settled over me like a blanket. It wasn't in any language I recognized, and yet I knew it. Every note, every breath, every word. It wasn't just a song, it was hers, a lullaby. Older than the floor beneath me, older than the town. I sat up slowly and sang with her. The words came unbidden, as natural as breathing. My lips moved before I realized my voice layered over hers in perfect unison. "Sleep, little flame. The dark won't stay. Close your eyes till ash fades away." My throat caught halfway through. It wasn't just a song. It was a goodbye, a promise whispered in the dark before the rope, a mother's voice that never came, a comfort Mercy never had. But now she was singing it for herself and for me. I rose, pulled by the sound, the verses guiding me step by step through the darkened house, down the stairs past the painting, into the parlor where the cold air wrapped around my ankles. The fire had returned to the hearth, crackling, soft, alive, and Mercy was there, sitting in front of it, back to me, hair dark as ink, shoulders still, voice steady. She sang the final verse alone. "One day fire, one day sky, we wake again when it's time to die." The last note lingered like a breath held too long. Then silence. She didn't turn around, but I felt her see me. "Where did you learn that?" I asked, voice barely more than a breath. She answered without moving. "It came to me when they chained my hands." I wanted to speak, to ask how I knew the words, how they lived in my mouth like I'd sung them 1,000 times. But I didn't need to, because I already knew. They were passed down, from her pain, into my blood. And now, they were awake. She stood slowly and faced me. Her eyes were soft, tired, but no longer angry. "You remember," she said. I nodded, not just to her, to everything. "I remember." The fire crackled, and for the first time since I'd entered the house, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, like something was finally ready to rest or rise. The basement door was open, no noise, no creak, just open, like it had never been sealed at all. The boards were gone, the lock missing, the frame clean, unscarred. The air that poured out from below was colder than stone and older than dust. I stood there for a long time. Something about the stillness felt sacred. I didn't bring a light, just my breath and her name, Step by step, I descended. The stairs groaned, but not in protest, more like a sigh, as if the house had been waiting for this moment just as long as she had. The basement stretched farther than it should have. It wasn't just earth and wood anymore. It was cavern, chamber, sanctuary, and at its center, lit by nothing but its own presence, was the altar. Stone, cracked, ancient, carved with symbols that pulsed faintly beneath the surface. 3 interlocked circles, the eye, the triangle, the flame. Every mark I'd seen in the house led here. Mercy stood behind it, not a girl, not a ghost. A judge, a witness, a reckoning wrapped in flesh and silence. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes held every word she'd ever waited to say. I walked forward, barefoot on the cold ground, each step a confession. The altar wasn't covered in blood. It was covered in names, etched into the stone, layer upon layer. Accusers, judges, liars, cowards, and at the very center, freshly carved, my name, not by her hand, by mine. I reached out, fingers trembling. "Why me?" I whispered. Her answer was a breath, so quiet it may have been my own voice echoing back. "Because you stayed." Behind the altar, something stirred, not movement, a presence, coiled like smoke, waiting, not evil, not holy, just. The weight of truth given form. She placed her hand on the stone, a gesture of invitation or judgment, and I realized this wasn't a place of punishment. It was a place of balance, of final choices, of endings that echo. My breath hitched. "What happens if I kneel?" I asked. Her eyes softened. "You won't be kneeling to me." I lowered myself slowly. The stone felt warm beneath my skin. The air stilled. The house above us seemed to pause. And Mercy closed her eyes. Her lips moved. No sound came. But I knew the words. The lullaby. The sentence. The prayer. And the fire began to rise, not to burn me, but to show me what judgment truly meant, to show me what came after silence. Truth. I thought it would end with fire. The journal sat on the kitchen table, quiet, still, waiting. The same book that had pulled me into her story, into her mind, into her rage. Its cover felt heavier now, like it knew. I lit a match, watched the flame crawl down to my fingers before tossing it onto the open pages. At first, the book resisted. Then it caught. The fire moved slowly, hungrily. The pages curled inward, blackening at the edges, cracking like old skin. I didn't look away. I wanted to see it die. Every word, every name, every whisper. Smoke filled the room, sharp and bitter, the scent of ink and time unraveling. I waited until there was nothing left but ash, a fine gray pile in the shape of a book, still warm, still humming. I reached for the metal spoon I'd brought, my only plan, and stirred the ashes, scattered them across the floor. Let her be gone. Let this be enough. Then, a whisper, not in the room, not in my head. From the ashes. I leaned closer and froze. Words were forming, right there in the soot, black letters rising through the gray. No ink, no pen, just truth refusing to stay buried. The same handwriting, hers, line after line emerging from the ruins of the page. "You think fire unwrites me? I was born in flame." Ash is memory. I stumbled back, breath caught in my chest. The floor pulsed faintly beneath me. The walls groaned. The journal gone, but somehow louder than before. New words formed. "This is not an ending. You carry me now, in voice, in blood, in silence. I wanted to scream, but no sound came, because deep inside something was stirring, not Mercy's rage, not her grief, something else, a thread, a tether. Her memory was no longer bound to paper. She had passed through it, into me, and now even the fire couldn't hold her back. I fell to my knees, touched the ashes with trembling fingers. They were cold, but the words, they stayed, etched in the floor like they'd always been there, like they always would be. I thought I was burning her story, but she had already written herself into mine. And now, no matter what came next, Mercy would never be forgotten, because she no longer needed the book. She had me. It hit me all at once, not like a revelation, more like a release, like a knot inside me had finally come undone. The fire couldn't destroy her. The book couldn't contain her. The house couldn't bury her. All of it, the marks, the dreams, the whispers, had been leading to this. I wasn't here to punish her. I was never meant to stop her. I was meant to listen, to see, to finish what the others refused to face, not with a noose, not with fire, with something none of them had offered her, not once. Forgiveness. I stood in the center of the basement, the altar behind me, the ash still clinging to my fingers like memory. Above, the house was quiet. Below, the stones hummed. Mercy stood across from me, no longer shifting, no longer blurred between girl and ghost. She was solid now, whole, but her eyes, they weren't angry. They were waiting for my verdict. And for the first time, I realized something that stole the breath from my lungs. I wasn't just the last of her judge's blood. I was the last judge, the final voice in a trial that had echoed for over 3 centuries. And the gavel had always been mine to drop. I looked her in the eyes and I spoke. "I see you." Her breath caught. "I know what they did to you. I know who I am. I know what I carry." She didn't move. I stepped closer. "You deserved more than silence, more than fire, more than this." A pause, the air trembled. I opened my hands. "I'm not here to condemn you. Not anymore." The words were hard. They scraped their way out of me like glass. "I forgive you." A pause, then, "I forgive him, too." That part almost broke me, because I had to free her, to free me. The ground shifted beneath us. The house exhaled. Mercy blinked, and for the first time her eyes filled with tears. Not rage, grief, gratitude. The altar cracked down the middle. The marks on the walls faded. The ash lifted into the air like dust on a quiet wind. And she smiled. Small, soft, real. "Thank you." The house didn't groan. It sighed. Light poured in from cracks I'd never seen. And Mercy began to fade. Not like a ghost. Like a burden finally laid down. The trial was over. Not with fire. Not with fear. With truth. And a kind of justice no one ever gave her. A chance to rest. The hill is quiet now. The wind doesn't howl like it used to. The house doesn't creak in protest. The walls don't breathe. It's just still. I packed the last of my things this morning. No ceremony, no backward glances. Just boxes and silence. The house didn't fight me. It let me go. As if it finally understood. I'd done what I came to do. The basement is sealed. The portrait is gone. The altar? Nothing but cracked stone and forgotten ash. And Mercy? She's not here anymore. Not like before. Not watching. Not whispering. Not pressing against the skin of my thoughts. But I can feel her, like warmth in the spine of an old book. Like the last note of a song that never got its ending. She's quiet now. Peaceful. Almost. I left the journal, what remained of it, beneath the floorboards in the parlor. That's where she wanted it. Not buried, not burned, just remembered. The townspeople still don't talk. Grace hasn't returned my calls, but I understand now. They weren't ignoring her. They were afraid. Afraid that if they said her name, they might summon her. Or worse, hear her. But I'm not afraid. Not anymore. I started driving just after sunset. Gallows Hill faded in the rear view, swallowed by trees and dusk. And as the road stretched ahead, I rolled down the window, let the air hit my face. Clean, sharp, alive. I should feel relief. But the truth is, I miss her. Not the terror, not the fire, not the dreams. Her voice, her story. The way she filled the silence like something sacred, like something long overdue. Sometimes late at night, I still hear her. Not in my head, not in the walls, in the space between thoughts, in the hush before sleep, just a whisper. Remember me. And I do, every day, because the truth is simple. She was never a monster. She was a mirror, held up to a world too afraid to see itself. And I was lucky enough to look. The hill is quiet now, but quiet doesn't mean empty. It just means she's listening. And if you ever find yourself standing at the edge of that house, feeling a chill that has no source, hearing a voice you almost recognize, say her name. Just once. Not out of fear, out of respect. She'll hear you. She always does.